Adrian Sandoval, Sam via ArTeam member here to show you how to cut the perfect pixie. Whenever we're cutting short hair, we need to ask ourselves, are we cutting the hair short just to cut it short, or are we personalizing the shape on each one of our clients? It took me a long time to get comfortable with short hair and understanding the shaping. But once I did, it is very important because I like to tell people, these are the clients that like to fill your books up every 5-6 weeks. They pre-book and they buy product. In order to find the vertical transition, I like to place my comb and do the teeter-tottering technique. Let me show you. I like to place my comb right flat vertical to the head, and then I like to turn it and kind of rock it back and forth like a teeter-totter. Right where that comb likes to stay on is right where that vertical transition starts. If we are following this vertical transition correctly, as you can see, my vertical transition goes to a higher point right around the recession, and it drops down till we get to the crown. I'm going to place this comb nice and vertical, and then I'm going to lift up and do that teeter-tottering technique. Right where that comb wants to sit on that head is right where that vertical transition begins. I'm going to start this haircut at the center back using a center vertical section. I'm going to be pulling everything straight out horizontal, but my fingertips are going to be in a slight angle mimicking that head shape. I used to start bottom up, but then by the time I worked my way up, sometimes that weight line was a little too low or a little too high. Working my way up to down, I like to establish that weight line so I can see exactly where it's going to sit and then work my way down and taper down as I work to the nape. I'll be using my Sandoval Streamline 6.25 shears. Now right now my fingers are square, but the head shape is not square. As you can see, it is tapering and angling in. So I need to make sure that my fingers mimic that head shape. Right where my fingertip is, this should be the longest point of the short hair and working my way down to shorter lengths. Continuing taking that fine teeth part of my comb, just grabbing that section and working my way down. Another vertical section. I'm going to grab a little bit of that original guide right at the top, and I'll be using that as my guide. So once again, I'm always thinking that at my fingertips right here, this should be the longest point, and everything is going to work its way down. Making sure I'm not over directing. That is going to cause any unwanted weight. I'm still working my way down, following the head shape. I'm going to grab a section, a little piece of my guide from the previous section, as you can see. Changing my finger position to mimic that head shape. That should be my longest point, and I'm going to work my way down and get shorter as I get to that nape. Pulling everything nice and vertical, not over directing back. That is how those earmuffs start. I'm pulling everything out horizontally, working my way longest point at my fingertip and working my way down as I reach the ear. Making sure I'm not pulling anything back, creating any unwanted weight. No over directing. So as I get around this ear, I like to take my angle and go a little bit tighter, just so there's not a lot of hair that's going to be covering over the ear. Most of the time we like to keep the sideburn wispy, we like to keep the nape nice and wispy, but we do want this ear to be a little more cleaned up. So I'm going to exaggerate my angle just a little bit more so I can get a little more of a taper and not have so much excessive hair over the ear. Now the section I am at, I am in front of the ear, so now what I'm going to be doing is walking my way into that sideburn. Now depending on what your client wants, you can have options. You can see my guide, I can continue following that guide, working my way down, or I can kick my fingers out just a little bit on an angle so I can maintain some of that length. Grabbing another diagonal forward section, I need to make sure I'm pulling it out parallel to that section, which means I'm not going to be over directing down at all. This doesn't create unwanted weight. I want to lift this up parallel to that section, find my shortest piece at the top. That should be my shortest right here, and working my way down as I get to the sideburn. I'm going to cut a little bit more length. Now I'm going to stop, give myself a little more options of when it's dry, kick those fingers out on a longer angle just so we can keep that sideburn a little bit longer. So if you notice my transition, I went from completely vertical to the center back. As I work my way behind that ear, it comes a slight diagonal forward, becomes a little more exaggerated diagonal forward. So by the time I get to these last two sections, they should be parallel, and basically this last section I am matching up to that weight line. Look for a nice clear guide in the back. Work my way forward. Before I even started my cleanup, we have our weight already being built, and you can see that nice taper. Sideburns a little wispier, so we have some little more options to work with when the hair is dry. So now what I want to do is cross-check. I'm going to go diagonal back and work my way all the way to the beginning point. I'm going to pull this horizontally out from that subsection. Guide right here at the top should be my longest point, and I'm going to work my way down. I don't want to cut too much into that, but I am going to clean it up. So pulling this out, no over direction, pulling this out horizontally, using that as top as my guide, and point cutting any stragglers out of the way. If I pull this out vertically, it does have a nice angle to it, but as you can see, I'm right where that ear is, and what we needed to have that ear is a little more wispier and a little more cut out. What I'm gonna do is take this same angle at the top, work my way down, adjust my finger angle so I can get in a little bit tighter. Working my way back, looking at that weight line for my highest point, adjusting my fingers in, and tapering a little bit more in, just continuing those same diagonal back sections. I'm using that top longest length as my guide, adjusting my fingers, working my way down. I want to make sure as I work my way to this nape, I want the hair to be hugging the head. I do not want any weight. I want everything to be sitting nice and flat below the weight line. Now I am happy how this side turned out. And now the fun part, trying to create the exact same thing on the other side. Looking for my weight line at the top, making sure I am adjusting my fingers, following that head shape, bringing those fingertips in, and working my way down to that nape. Everything pulled out horizontally, finger angle parallel to the head shape. Making sure all these diagonal back sections are being pulled straight out, no over direction. I am in my first sideburn section, so I'm going to cut a little bit length off. As you can see, the length I still have, I'm going to kick my fingers out just a little bit more to maintain some of that length and cut. As you can see, I'm getting to that point where everything was diagonal forward first. Now it's starting to become a little bit more horizontal as I work my way to those last couple sections. Looking longer to shorter. Bottom part of the section is the sideburn, so what are we going to do? We're going to take our fingertips and kick out. And what that's going to do is leave that sideburn nice and long, so we have some options to texturize at the end. So this is my second last section. As you can see, it is a slight diagonal forward, but it's not nearly as steep as it was in the back. So it goes from a steep diagonal forward to almost diagonal forward horizontal, and then this last section I'm going to be being pulled horizontal to that weight line. So this last section I pull out horizontally, and it should match up to that shortest piece, which is the weight line that we established all the way around the head. We always want to check for balance. Grab your fingertips, making sure that we are in the exact same spot of the head on the left and right side. Pulling out, use your touch. So what I did was just take a 1-inch subsection out of that vertical transition section that we originally clipped up. I'm going to be taking vertical sections, pulling everything horizontal, still following that same angle, still building weight. Continuing taking vertical sections. Pulling everything horizontally straight out. Looking for that guide at the bottom of my fingertips and working my way up. I should see the length slowly still getting longer, still building weight. So we're going to move on to the top. I'm going to grab a short piece of that crown I just connected to that weight line. I'm going to pull everything vertical, 180, straight up. Looking for that guide. Our crown kind of goes on an angle. It goes shorter, goes longer. So it just depends on how short your client wants to go on this top of what guide you're going to follow. So there is a guide right there at the crown. I could be following that one. I could slide up and use a longer one if I want to keep some of that length on top a little bit longer. I'm going to walk this all the way to the front of the head, still pulling everything up at 180, nice and square. So even if your client does want it longer, if I come straight across, it is naturally going to be longer in the front because you can see this hair that needs to reach a lot further than the hair at the top of the head. So naturally, if we cut straight across, it's going to be longer in the front. Now, if we wanted to exaggerate that, we can swing our fingertips up just a little bit, look for that guide, maintaining a little bit more length at the top. And now I'm going to go in horizontal sections and connect to that center original guide that I just cut. Working my way to the front. Look for any unwanted hair, any stragglers. Over directing back just a little bit when we get to that hairline. Especially if your client has a little bit of receding in the recession area. In vertical sections behind that ear. Looking for any unwanted corners that I might run into. Blending that top section to the side section. All right, now the blow dry part. I like to use this Redken beach spray to spray in the hair and give a little more of that gritty texture feeling to the root. When I start blow drying, anything above that weight line that we established, I'm going to start using my small to medium round brush. Anything below that, I'm going to take my blow dryer, my wide teeth comb, and keep everything nice and flat and smooth. So when I blow dry, I like to say I like to blow dry how I cut it in that order. So I made sure that nape was nice and flat. I started there to the sides. And now what I'm going to do is take a 1-inch strip from where that vertical transition, that halo section was, and I'm going to round brush that all the way around the head, and I'm just going to keep building that weight up and working my way up to the top of the head. Even if they push your hair to the side, I'm going to pull it forward. I'm going to comb it back in the opposite direction. And what this is going to do is smooth out any colics or any hair growth patterns that I do not want. Now my favorite part of all haircuts, the dry detailing. These details is what's going to separate you from other stylists. Now that I got all the unwanted length removed with my 6.25 Streamline shears, I'm going to go in and break up any unwanted bulk using my InvisiBlends. Pull it close, slide out, close, slide out, and maybe a little bit more at the ends if you need it. Close, slide out. But as you can see, I am never texturizing the exact same spot of the hair strand. I'm always sliding up and texturizing a further along as I get to the ends. Opening and closing, working my way down the strands. What this is going to do is create some negative space in the fringe, making it a little more piecier. So you can see the wispiness that's already being created. So I do like to put a lot of pomades on my pixies, but before I'm going to start putting that pomade and putting it in the hair, I want to remove any loose texturizing hair that I just cut. If I don't do that and put the pomade in there, all that loose hair is going to be stuck and all smashed in with that pomade that I'm about to put in. So remove the hair first, then let's style it. So I'm going to be taking a little bit of pomade, that much probably for this length. I'm going to put it right at the palm of my hand and rub it all in, massage it in my hands real good. Now we're going to massage it in the hair. Kind of do like a little shoe shine technique, making sure that those ends get really full of product. I'm Adrian Sandoval, Sam via ArTeam member. May your books be filled with pixies. Thanks for watching.